You are listening to the Outside the Boards podcast. I'm Danny O'Leary. For most of my professional career, I have worked in mainstream sports for some of the world's leading sports organizations and properties and blue-chip brands, helping to create award-winning omni-channel marketing campaigns, result-driven sales strategies, and impactful brand-building initiatives. But all that work doesn't compare to the fun, excitement, and challenges I've been fortunate to experience working for the king of all sports, polo. For nearly a decade, I've put my heart and ambition into helping advance the sport of polo. I've made lifelong friendships, met some incredible people, traveled to memorable polo destinations, and heard the craziest stories. My goal is to share these people, places, and stories with you and provide a unique behind-the-scenes perspective of the game that breaks all the common stereotypes, all while discussing key issues affecting the sport today and the constructive sharing of ideas, insights, solutions, and best case studies for the purpose of advancing polo globally. Every week, I will have honest conversations with polo industry leaders, enthusiasts, and awe-inspiring people who make this sport great and fun to be around. I hope through their knowledge and their unique perspectives, they will motivate and inspire you. Together, we will explore ways you can make small tweaks to boost your polo business, whether you are a club, event, team, or player, that will amount to big changes in revenue, participation, attendance, and exposure. Saddle up. Welcome to Outside the Boards with me, Daniel O'Leary. Daniel O'Leary here, and welcome to Season 2 of the Outside the Boards podcast. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday and great start to the new year. High Goal in the United States has gotten underway in Florida. I hope you are all tuning into Global Polo TV and Chucker TV to watch all the action. On this episode of Outside the Boards, we finally get to go abroad. We will be taking a little trip to France and meet up with Olivier Godallier, co-founder and president of Game Polo, which is responsible for the creation of the successful Polo Rider Cup, now in its second year at the Chantilly Polo Club north of Paris. Like myself, Olivier has a lengthy background in popular sports before falling into the sport of polo. Olivier's career in sports began with the well-known advertising agency Publicis, and later with one of sports management and marketing's original and iconic agency, ProServe. He would later go on to find Game Polo, a French sports marketing agency focused on event organization, marketing and sponsorship, licensing and merchandising, TV and digital content distribution, and hospitality within the Sport of Kings. In 2021, Game Polo would host the first edition of the Polo Rider Cup. The competition is for teams between 10 and 12 goals, with prestigious clubs from around the world. In 2021, the tournament hosted 8 clubs from countries like England, France, Germany, Italy, Switzerland, Russia, Spain, Austria, and the United States. The plan is to welcome 16 clubs to partake in the tournament, which will switch locations every 2 years. The idea was born out of the observation that there was no international competition between polo clubs that existed. Game Polo wanted to put one together in the official context with the support of the FIP and other associations. The 2022 tournament will be held from June 8th to the 18th, with 11 teams already committed to the 10-day tournament from the United States, Switzerland, Germany, Argentina, France, Austria, and Malaysia. Olivier is a brilliant sports marketer and business professional who has worked alongside some of the sport's most respected industry leaders. He brings an array of experience and ideas from mainstream sports to polo, and it's working. I'm excited to watch this year's Polo Rider Cup and encourage you to tune in or travel to France and watch. So let's get started, everyone. Enjoy. Olivier Godallier, it is a pleasure to speak with you. I know we were back and forth trying to get our schedules coordinated. It is a nice Monday morning here, and I'm sure it's a beautiful afternoon over there in France.
Yes, thank you, Daniel. Yes, it's a wonderful day here in France, in the southwest of France, because I'm located in Biarritz, which it is surfing California of France, and it's where I live and where I enjoy the life, and happy to be with you on this podcast.
Actually, what does that mean? A surfing area of France is?
In fact, in France, you have a very famous city which is called Biarritz, where you have, the G7 was there in 2019 with your ex-president, Mr. Trump.
Okay.
And that's the place where all the European fans of surfing came here. We have a lot of big brands like Quicksilver, Billabong, and all these different surfing brands are there. And I guess it's very well known on the surfing world. That's a nice city to live, but in the same time, it's very well known in the surfing world because you have a stage of the World Championship there every year, and a lot of surfing people come live in here in this area.
Yeah.
And the reason is everybody said is little California of France because it's a nice life to live along the year. It's not the same weather than LA or Washington in the south of LA, but it's a very nice place to live.
My wife is itching to get to a beach, so we might have to add that little gem of a place onto our future destination.
Yeah, it's a good destination.
I attribute a lot of polo players to surfers in a way. They migrate to where the waves are.
Yeah, but here in Biarritz, we used to have a polo field, which is not anymore, but it was, and there is around where it was this polo field, there is a street named by ex-polo players, and there's a bar called the Polo Bar, and still alive, and still a very famous place around what used to be a polo field. Now it is a rugby field, but it was a polo field before.
So there's a lot of polo history then in France.
Yes, I think there is a lot of polo. Yes, I think that's what I noticed. Probably 40 clubs around France and more than 1,000 players. And yes, I think that with community of Argentina and a lot of people are fans, but the main club is in Chantilly, as everybody knows. And I think one of the biggest club in Europe with a 9 field, but you have club in Brittany with La Baule, in Saint-Tropez, which is well known from around the world. And after you have a small club around Paris, but everywhere in France, in Bordeaux, you have a small club, but you have a small club everywhere in France. But I would say the 3 main and plus Deauville. Also, I'm going to be kicked off by the Deauville people, but also Deauville is also a good reputation of a polo field. In the case, yes, you have 4 main clubs, and after you have small clubs.
Okay. But that's pretty impressive. I mean, considering the size of France, 40 clubs, over 1,000 players, that's a healthy system out there you got going.
Yeah. I think because I think the federation was doing a good job, not maybe the best one, but I think with the new president, we have someone more dynamic and more proactive. But I think there was already the federation was pushing ahead. But today, the new president is more creative and try to develop the sport in a more intelligent way than it was in the past.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, how did you get involved in the sport or prior to the Polo Rider Cup and game polo? What are your roots in the sport?
In my sport, I started a long time ago. I think that's more than 30 years ago, because I used to be an athlete first in a sport, and I used to be a basketball champion. And also I did something that in the US, you know very well, which is called the America's Cup in sailing. In that case, that's my 2 favorite sports when I started when I was young. And but in fact, all the time, if I don't succeed as an athlete, I was interested to work on a sport business. That was my goals and my target. And because I love the sport in general, I love the world of sports. I would say not my destination, but it's where my target to go. And in fact, I start in end of 80s in television, which is called France TV, which is a public TV channel in France. I create a position which is not existing as a sponsoring manager of the channel. And that's where I start my career in sport. And after I went to an American company called ProServe at this period of time.
Oh my gosh, that's the original.
Yeah,
Wow.
original, yeah, with Donald Dell as a chairman of the company, owner chairman of the company, which he was a competitor of Mark McCormack with IMG in the
Yeah.
case. And as you know the story, Mark McCormack was more oriented in golf, and Donald Dell was more oriented in tennis. And I started there, and spent 6 years working in ProServe at the European office in Paris. And I started my career like that, managing tennis players and marketing, event management. I was all these periods. We started. I did tennis, but also after we did golf, we did soccer, and I learned a lot with one of my. Donald was a mentor, but I have another person called Bill Allard, was my CEO, which was one of my mentor, where I learned a lot with him. And he was very, very interesting because he worked straight away from worldwide, in fact. And a story I can tell you that one day I remember we have a client called Stefan Edberg, which was number one in the world in tennis. And we have one sponsor left for him, and he put under the pressure of all the office, said that if you don't find me an extra sponsor, I will leave to go to IMG. And in 2 weeks' time, all the salespeople around the world was pushing to get a deal for him and everything. And myself, in 2 weeks' time, I make a huge deal with him, with Barilla. And it was funny because it was a Monday, like today. For me, the same time of timing, end of the day in Paris. And I called the company Barilla because I just saw they just was signing with Steffi Graf at this period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I introduced myself as working for Stefan Edberg and everything. And I get directly to, which is today still the president of the company, Luca Barilla. And he said to me, I'm interested. Can you come next week? I came the following week. We met. I present Stefan in terms of the personality, what we can do with him, blah, 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 everything. And he said, when we can meet, I said, I need to check, but I call you tomorrow morning. And we were in Parma at the head office of Barilla. And the next day I called him and I said, we can meet him next week, next Monday in Sweden. And he said, okay. We met there and everything. And following Monday, we were all together with Stefan in south of Sweden, where he lives. And at the end of the meeting with Stefan, we signed a 3-year deals.
That's a great story.
You know, you have some story like that. People sometimes said, I cannot believe. I said, I can show you, I can tell you, you can call Stefan, you can call Mr. Barilla. It's what happened, and we save the client, you know, in ProServe. And that's my story at ProServe, that everybody knows the story. And and now the reference when Barilla signed with Roger Federer, and everybody said, call me, said, it's you, make this deal. I said, no, this time it's not me, but it was funny because the people have this story in feedback, but it was a funny one.
My gosh, we could have a separate podcast in itself about ProServe. And I mean, you were working with the godfathers of sports marketing at that time. I mean,
yes, and I still meet him when I think since 2 years he cannot fly anymore, but I was still meeting Donald when he was coming to Sportel in Monaco. And for me, it was a funny moment also when he did my interview, because everybody said to me, you know, Donald don't have the time to lose. You know, it's if you meet him and you stay more than 30 minutes with him, you're lucky. And
yeah.
I spend my time, my unique interview with Donald, we stayed 2 hours. And my English was not like it was today. You know, it was very poor English. He said, I love you. I'm going to take you, but you need to learn English, he said to me at the end of the meeting. I said, yeah, no problem. But it was a funny one. After ProServe, I created my own agency because ProServe shut down for some reason, the office. And after I created my first agencies where I manage more than 50 athletes in different sports, and where I was doing my specialty at this period of time, it was marketing. And in France, I was proactive in doing deals with brand and athletes. And it was something I was doing a lot of years. And in fact, I spent almost in total 10 years to doing this. And one day I've been called by an old friend, an Italian friend, who asked me if I want to come to work in Switzerland for an international governing body. And it was FIBA. And I went there and I spent 5 years at FIBA as a marketing director. And from that, after I was recruited by a headhunter to go to the International Motorcycle Federation as a marketing and communication director. Both position was a position I created because there was nobody inside of this at this period of time. Because I've been creating a lot of position and a lot of business in the center, because when there was nobody before, automatically you create new business, you create new things that is still going on today, because it is good that you can see what you can bring to any properties and any event or whatsoever. But I did this. And I've been working in motorcycling during 7 years. And after I left and I set up my second agencies, which is Game Sport, still working for the International Motorcycling Federation because I'm taking care of the media right. And for some series, I'm taking care about the marketing. And 3 years ago, we create Game Polo.
Man, I love the fact that you took, going back to Pro Serve. I feel fortunate, by the way, to have worked with IMG. That was my first internship
Yeah.
in the world. And I actually worked for IMG just after the passing away of Mark McCormick. So it still
Okay.
had that very family atmosphere before it got bought and so on and so forth and what have you. But to this day, all those Pro Serve, IMG has always been constantly told that story and kind of the godfathers of sports marketing. It's great that you have had the opportunity to work with those individuals, because that's where the roots of everything started, tennis,
Yeah,
golf, and so on and so forth, endorsement deals. But I love the fact that you're mainstream sports, and I know that you're offering that level of expertise and knowledge and applying it to polo, as I've kind of had the same background. I came from mainstream sports before I entered into the world of polo. So I constantly believe that there's a lot of great case studies that, having worked at that level and providing it with polo, is a great asset to the sport. It definitely needs it.
mainly what we have, and I've been working with personality like Mike McCormack or Donald
Mm-hmm.
Dale. And I will include also someone else. It's David Falk, Michael Jordan
Yep.
agent,
Mm-hmm.
because it was also someone who brings something different to this business, and where you need to learn what you have achieved and what you have done. For me, that all these people are very creative, and at this period of time was unbelievable what they did. And to work with them, to learn, and to listen to them, because the first things and is to listen, because sometimes you learn more in lesson this personality, that to try to do something. And I have listened a lot and still listen a lot to certain people who I met, because that's where you can be creative, where you can do something. And I'm still impressed by these guys at this period of time, what they have achieved, because it was unbelievable. And today, I think it's not the same way of working. Sometimes people go too fast and don't take the time to step back a little bit, and what we can do it.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the marketplace might be oversaturated now, and it does move incredibly fast. I mean, I worked on the agency side, and my gosh, I think the one frustrating thing I've had on the agency side is I could never dedicate myself to one particular sport or one particular brand. I felt like percentages of my brain were being thrown to working with blue chip brands, from Taco Bell to Allstate to Cadillac, and you're not putting your heart and soul and taking the time to really develop campaigns or programs, whether it be for the buyer, the brand, or the property in itself. And that's kind of what I love about polo, is that it's, for the most part, it's a blank canvas.
Hmm.
There's so much opportunity. So with that said, in your background, now how did polo kind of weave into it?
I came to polo. In fact, I have an old friend close to me here in Biarritz. This summer, I would say, house. And we were taking a coffee at the beach, and they said to me, "Oh, Olivier is ex-marketing director of Nike Europe." And they said to me, "Olivier, I have met two persons, the father and his son, and they have an idea, but I think you can bring something to them. It would be good you meet them and see what you can do it." I said, "What it is?" He said, "It's polo." I said, "But I never did anything in polo." So yes, but with your eyes, with your mentality, with your profile, maybe there is something to do it. I said, "Okay, yes, okay, set up a meeting and we'll see." And a few weeks later, he set up the meeting, I met them, and they have an idea to do a polo event. In fact, the idea was to copy and pass a little bit the Champions League of soccer. And I said, okay, good idea, but where we go with the horses, because polo without horses, I said, oh, but we can transport them each week to each place where we play. He said, already we're going to go to the red zone, because it's going to be cost a fortune just to make the transportation of the horses to each place every week, and it's budget-wise, it's over. You cannot do this. For me, I don't see where you can, at the end, organize the event, and secondly, you can make money, because it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I like the concept, but it's something need to be redefined. Okay, let's see what we can do it. And we spend some time to discuss. And after there was a little down, nobody talked, I didn't hear about anyone. For me, I was like, not sure if it works. I make some research and everything. It never happened before. And one day I wake up and I said, I say organize a world championship because my reference working for FIBA and organize the world championship 2006 in Japan. And then I was one of the two persons in charge of the event. In the case, I know the logistic aspect, organize an event, and plus in a country like Japan, in the case, you can imagine the details you need to go and everything. I said, why we don't do something different? Why we don't bring everyone to one place, to one club, to one site, and play the tournament during 2 weeks? And draft something, and I introduced that to them and said, what do you think about this concept now? And we keep the club because the club, I think it's a good point because my background with a governing body, international federation, they like to have this pyramid, the governing body, the national federation, and the club. And I said, why we don't do your event, your concept? I like the concept, but why we don't change the system? We bring everyone to one place, one site, one club, and everybody the team need to come from one club. It can be, at the start, it was European, the idea, and we increase year by year the number of teams and also maybe the handicap. And I said, yes, that's a good idea. And I said, we save costs. We can have something. We have a 10 days, 2 weeks events. We can do ticketing. We can do hospitality. We can do merchandising. And we can do TV because also what I have noticed in polo, that is restricted to the polo fan. And when you produce a polo event, people just think to put that on a polo platform, but not outside of this world. And again, if you're looking for sponsors, it's good if you're a fan with the chairman of LVMH or Gucci and everything. But today, people want a return on investment, their ROI and everything. In the case, plus the social media, they need exposure, they need to reach the audience. If you stay with your polo family, you're not going to go anywhere. Mm-hmm. And I said, how we can progress with this? Can we have a call with the International Federation? And they said, yes, okay. I introduced myself to the president of the International Federation of Polo, Mr. Erico, and to Alex Taylor, the CEO. And I introduced the concept. And they said, well, we sign. Because they said it's exactly what we want. Mm-hmm. And me coming from governing body with my background and everything, they said exactly what we need. And at the same time, I said, but I would like to change some stuff also inside of polo because I'm not a polo player. I'm not coming from this world, but I need to reach a certain audience. And if you keep the rules like it is, nobody will come. And one thing we changed in 2021, it was after a goal, we don't change way to play. We keep the same way. In the case, like you have in basketball, like you have in soccer, like you have in all different team sports, we attack in the same way, the same direction.
Do you guys switch after every chukker then, or after the first
half?
Okay.
Exactly. And they love it. And I said, Olivier, we tried to do this in several years, but nobody want to do it. I said, I understand that because there is a culture, there is a tradition. Here we're going to use because it's because of television, because I want to make deals in television. At this point of time, I did not have any deals. And said, but for TV purpose, for the spectator to come to the event, we need to change something. We need to attract. And they said, okay, we accept your request. I said, it's only one rules. That's all. It's only this. And we did it. And we built the product, and we were supposed to have 8 teams, and we get 12. And we're supposed to have only European team, and we get international, 2 Americans, 1 Argentina, 1 Russian, 1 Asia, 2 German, 2 Swiss, 2 France, and 1 Spanish, and up, and we go. And here the event went on, and it was a full success. And the changes of the small rules, when we did the first meeting with all the players, everybody said, wow, you see these rules, everybody tomorrow will forget these rules and we will play like it was before. And everything. Said, okay, we'll see. And no one make any mistake, and they respect the rules, and everybody apply. And what is good, because now it's inside of the event.
This podcast episode is presented by the Gay Polo League, The Gay Polo League is the only LGBTQ polo organization in the world that is dedicated to producing high-end LGBTQ polo events and experiences. Its mission is to inspire and empower those individuals who identify themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender via the promotion of and participation in the sport of polo. The GPL promotes the sport of polo to provide equality, pride, inclusion, and confidence for those individuals who face discrimination simply due to identifying themselves as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or other non-traditional sexual or gender identities. GPL works to create an atmosphere that affirms and supports the understanding and acceptance of all individuals regardless of race, sex, or sexual identity, and works to promote goodwill and camaraderie in the community. Its ongoing goal is to raise money at GPL events to help LGBTQ organizations better serve their communities. Our battle cry is, the slightest difference makes all the difference. GPL is changing perceptions in the LGBT community, athletics, and society at large, one chucker at a time. In 2022, the GPL was awarded the Champion of Equity and Diversity in Sports, awarded by the Palm Beach County Sports Commission. We invite you to join us. For more information about the organization, its events, and how to donate, please visit www.gaypolo.com. When I first got involved in polo, I felt as though the goal changing thing was one of the more annoying things for someone who comes from mainstream sports, and the changing of the goal, it doesn't occur until, after every half. It's like, why isn't that applied to polo? Like, it's the simplest thing for people to better understand and follow the game.
Exactly.
It's always frustrating me. I have a feeling something like that is ultimately going to change, because even in America, you see little tiny things that are being adopted from mainstream umpiring and rules that are ultimately trickling down into our sport. So hopefully we'll see that. But Federation of International Polo, they didn't enforce anything. They were open to accepting this change, weren't they?
Yes, they accept right away. They didn't argue. They didn't comment anything. They said, if you feel it's good. I said, yes, he need it. He need it because if we want to bring more broadcaster, we need to change this. If we don't do this, we're going to miss something. And also I said, I would like something else, but maybe it's too early on the first event to put too many rules, but we already adapt for the second event. We're going to do equal shotker. In the case of on the first event, it was 5 shotker of 7 minutes 30. Now we're going to do this year 6 shotker of 6 minutes. And when the players need to change horses, we don't stop the game. To have a fast game, to go fast, and to be dynamic. Yeah. Because most of the time, and I noticed this in 2021, that the players take their time to change. In the case you are losing the read, you are on television, you are losing this. And in the case you need to have a consistency, to have something that appeal to the people who come for the first time to see a polo game or to watch on TV, to be attractive. And that's something we want to do it, and I want to push that ahead. And now it's going to be like that. And to change already in the rules. And now the FIP, what is interesting, they did a woman event in Uruguay or Argentina at the end of the year. And they applied the rule like we do for the Polo Rider Cup. In the case, they're using her event to be a laboratory for the new polo or the new version of the polo. And they have to impose this now on the game globally. It's something that I would say something to be pushed by the president, the board of the Polo Federation, but it need to be. They need to take the lead on this, and it's one of the ways they have to change. And if the Polo Rider Cup can be the one who helps this, I think it's good.
You did mention a really important topic, in my previous podcast, even from season 1, having the opportunity to talk to guys like Jared Zenny, Freddie Mannix, and so on and so forth. A lot of them really talk about, especially because they play in Argentina as well as the USA and other countries, is they talk about the pace of game. And they definitely reference Argentina a lot because the pace of game in Argentina, the way it's played, is so much faster. And to your point, it also makes for a great TV. It's something that I think the American polo scene needs to adopt better, from what I hear, is to increase the pace, because there is too much leg time between chuckers and so on and so forth, and it's not quickening the pace at all. So that's great that you're doing it. I think that's really attractive to a lot of teams and players, especially since you're inviting people from all over the country. And I know players, especially professionals, they want to see that level of competition and pace. I don't know if you've heard something similar, but I constantly hear it all the time.
I would say that in Europe, and maybe people are more conservative or with the tradition, and maybe in England with the polo, people try to not change the rules and everything because they like to play like it was since 30 years, 50 years and everything.
Yeah.
But we need to adapt the sport to the audience we have today. It's all depends where you want to go. If you want to keep like that, it's just restrict to a certain elite or certain population. Okay, but it will live like that and will never be developed. Or you decide to do, but we need to expand the sport to have increased, maybe to come back one day to the Olympics. It was a long time ago,
Yes.
in the 90s, and it's something that it's all upon the strategy, but the strategy needs to be defined by someone, and the unique, I would say, entity who can do that is the International Polo Federation. My more than 12 years in governing body, that the sport is driven by the governing body, and the governing need to be more powerful. I think today what I saw in polo, that the governing body is not enough powerful. And I'm taking another example. I've been talking with them and try to help them because they know my background, where I come from. And I said, you need to have a clear calendar. Example. Clear calendar means that every year when you have all these tournaments, the qualification for the World Championship or European Championship, when it's going to be played. You need to make tenders in due time in order to allocate it, the championship to the right federation and to the right place. You need to structure your calendar. And I said, yes, but it's not easy. He said, yes, but if you don't do it, are you going to bring after sponsors? Are you have to bring media? It's a combination, and it's going together. And in December, they adopt 100% the calendar for 23-26 with precise date of all the event and everything. Said, my Polo Rider Cup, I want to be all the time same date in June. If I am in Europe, if I am in the US, if I am anywhere, that's the date I want to have it. And it's part of the calendar and everything. If we have an issue, because depending on the country and the weather condition, it's complicated, like if you do in the Middle East or somewhere, okay, we can change, but it need to be the same date because the media, the sponsors work on a plan on 1 year or 4 years, depending who you're talking and everything. Now they start to change, but they need to put this on the table and to push this, like the regulation, like the calendar. It's them to impose this on day to day.
You said the goal was obviously 8 teams at first, right? And it ultimately went to 12 in your first year.
Yeah.
What sold some of these clubs to come and participate? What's kind of the economics of it all that intrigued a lot of these clubs? Because one of them actually is here in Chicago, our guy Larry Ashbrook from Las Parisas, who's played at Oakbrook and what had great guy, what he's doing here. It's great to have him and helping with the overall progress and growth of polo here in Chicago. But I'm really intrigued in terms of how that worked because, like you said, it's always was with the national governing bodies of polo in their country. But this took a completely different approach. So what intrigued those clubs or patrons, those team sponsors, to participate?
I think the first, I would say that the concept of the competition, the club competition, where is no, I would say, patron ego, because I am owner of this team playing against the other patron. It's different. You put a club in the front. It's like you do, if I'm talking about the European, you put a Real Madrid against Paris Saint-Germain.
Yeah.
Example, it's you put this in front on the table. And if you want, here, you'd put Chicago, in the Las Brisas Polo Club against Zurich and Polo Park. In the case, it's try to create a new spirit, a new gladiator game. It's not anymore ego of someone against the ego of someone else. And I think that's good. That's a concept I think that the competition was interested. Plus, they've been playing one game every 2 days, and live on TV. We did, also a media day. In the case we interviewed them, we did pictures. Like a normal event you have in any major sport, we try to treat them, and a patron loves this. They love it. All of them love it because, we were taking them like a normal champion, which when they are passionate of NBA or soccer or whatsoever, we treat them like they are on the field. And we did the media day with interview after the game. During the live TV, we did an interview after the game with the best player of the game from each team and everything. In the case, we've been produced the event like it was a World Cup. And I think the full concept of the event make attractive. And I think a person like Larry Ashbrook, who came, he made the decision. I know because he contacted me, he asked me information, I sent information. I said 48 hours afterwards, he said, I'm in. And we were very pleased because we did not expect to have one American team to come to play the tournament. And I think that's because he loves the concept, and to play against other nationalities, against Russian, against Asian people. I think that make also the interest of the concept of the event. And
Well, Larry Ashbrook, he, like yourself, he comes from mainstream sports at all.
Yeah.
He didn't get involved in polo. So
baseball or American football?
American football. Yeah. So so it's not surprising that he would jump onto something like that, the way that you described the concept, even using the word Champions League, which is still relevant in this case and what you're doing.
And so just for this year, it was the first one to renew, to come back.
Yeah. Because originally there was an article out where you guys were doing it like every 3 years or every 2 years.
No.
No.
We do every year. No, the idea it was to stay 2 years in Chantilly, which it is. And after we're going to move to another place, which we're under discussion for 2 or 3 years more. But we're going to change. The idea is to move, is not to stay to the same place. That was the concept.
Can Oakbrook put in a bid?
I cannot tell you where we're going to be in 2023, but
it's okay. That's okay. I don't know if there's a bidding process or if there's a way to get the name in the ring.
No, the problem that is very simple. We have 12 teams this year. Last year, maybe this year we have already 12 teams, but we have some other one knocked to the door. In the case, but sure, we have already the 12 team. Next year, probably we'll go to 16 team. In the case, after you don't find too many clubs in Europe, if we stay in Europe, where you can have an event like that. In the case, it's very limited where you can go. And it's easy to find the potential candidate where we can go. In the case, that's where we are. But we are studying, and the idea is to bring the event to these different country and clubs to attract to more that it's an international event. It's not a French event. It's not at all. It's not the aim. It's an international event with an international media exposure. That's what the concept of the event.
Got it. Now you have Las Brisas, who is renewed back again this year. Is there another American team that's coming? I know you had Empire before, but unfortunately Empire is no more. Thus the people are still trying to make it happen.
Yes, just to let you know, I can tell you because it's going to be announced tomorrow. Empire will come back next year, and they will be tomorrow. We're going to announce this. In the case they're still going on. I know Empire. There is some they continue or not in terms of polo club, but they will continue for 2022 with us.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
We are thinking about in the future, because the American nation with the Argentina is one of the biggest nation in polo. In their case, maybe in the future, maybe we will integrate maybe a third polo club, because normally we allocate only 2 clubs per country maximum in order to give the chance to everyone to play the tournament. The idea is now we know the demographic in terms of polo, and probably in the future we will, for the big country like Argentina or USA or UK, if one day they want to come, we will allocate more teams for these countries.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what goal level are you guys playing at?
This year we are 10-12. In the future, we want to go to 14-16.
Okay. No, that's our goal here in Oakbrook. We're at 10-12 right now at Oakbrook, and hopefully we can get up to the 16 level eventually. So it's wonderful that what you're doing. Now, in our discussion, you mentioned a lot of fantastic things, from rule changes to the commercialization of the sport to media, national television, and so on and so forth. In the scheme of things, when you look at polo on a global level, is there a particular country or club that in your mind is kind of doing it right? I mean, Argentina, obviously, it's like the second most popular sport in Argentina. The horse is still very much part of the culture and agriculture within the sport. So the economics of it are vastly different than here in the US, where it's just highly expensive up here. Do you see any more particular area where you think that they're doing it right or they're progressing? Is things like Global Polo TV that you see out there, is that progress? Is that something that continue to happen?
First things, I would like to say that the polo world depends too much on one country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that they need to be careful, because we know Argentina, it's a national sport. They have the best horses. Today they have the best players and everything. But the federation is based also in Argentina, the international federation. Okay, I understand that. I have no problem. But if you want to expand the discipline, the sport, it's not going to be soccer, it's not going to be basketball, it's not this, but to bring sport more global, I would say, more attractive, to have more competition or more players, and to not have only the handicap 10, only Argentinian players, and to have maybe, I will take the example of NBA. You need to have players coming from Europe, you need to have players coming from the US, you need to have players from Asia, you need to have these players come from all the different countries to reach this handicap 10, and not only Argentina. That's something that they have to, I would say, benchmark what's happened in all the sports and to expand this. In the case, that's first thing that I would like to say, that they need, and the federation, the FIP need to think about that, where they want to go and how they want to go with the sport, and to give the opportunity to have more international players and more nation to grow the sport. Now, who's doing good, who's doing best? I think that the American and the USA is, outside of Argentina, one of the major countries where polo is growing, where polo is developing. And I think that this is one of the countries who have to push and to maybe not take the lead, but to push the sport to grow. And I think with example of what happened with Global Polo TV, where they try to bring all these events together and everything. I'm working with them in the case Patrick McKinney with helping Global Polo TV to expand with the content, with the right and everything. I think he's doing a great job. We're in the same line. He's an ex-IMG. In the case we understand each other, we have the same background, I would say, in terms of philosophy of business. In the case, it's good to have someone who understands what we can bring to the sport. And I think that it's a country where you can push. One other country can do something good. It's UK, but UK is just stay with their traditional way of doing stuff, and I think that is not progressing. You know, we have been talking with them. One, to have teams. Secondly, maybe to organize the event in UK. And the first question, it was, how much for us? They was not thinking about how we can help, what we can do, and everything. He was only talking about money and nothing about the rest. In the case, it's not the way I think we have to build a sport and everything. It's you need to talk differently, to have another approach, and at the end you will make money. But if you start with the first question, how much we get, it's not the way you can build the product and how you can develop the sport. And I think it's a wrong way to approach the system. And I think that that's a wrong approach for me. And afterwards, you have a country like Spain, like France, Italy, Switzerland. It's a small country, but they have good players, good property, good clubs, very dynamic. So interesting. In Germany, they have a good dynamic also, with a lot of people playing polo. Small clubs, but good dynamic there. After you have different countries where you learn that polo is growing. And I think one of the issues I think that polo need to think about is develop the women's sport. Because here it's another way to increase the sport. And I think that the FIP understand that the reason they start to organize a woman world champ. And I can tell you today, we're going to develop the Women Polo Rider Cup in 2023. Because I think the women need to have their place, need to have their tournament, and need to have the existing in the sport. Okay, we know we can play mixed in this sport, but they need to have their own place and to have their own tournament and to have to celebrate their victory. In the case where we talk about today equal gender, and I think they have to be a part of the game.
No, I mean, women's polo, I mean, it's the fastest growing. I know here in the US, it most definitely is. And obviously, you look back in the 3 years, the way that women's polo have expanded is incredible. From women's US Open, championships to other arena. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's incredible growth. There's no question that to exploit and amplify women's polo is definitely needed in our sport. You do raise, though, a very interesting topic, and that is the athletes itself, the professionals. And so many are from Argentina, and are other countries doing what they're supposed to do to source players and develop their craft and so on and so forth. In USPA, you have Team USPA and trying to develop a model where those individuals can continuously grow to be better polo players and so on and so forth. I feel as though, when you compare that to other sports and you bring up FIBA and you bring up basketball, I think when you look at the past decade, I think that there are more international players, especially in the NBA, than there were previously. Would you agree?
Yeah,
I feel
because
like there is.
I have been working in FIBA 2003. Yes, 2003. And I started, and it was the start of, after, I would say, Barcelona Olympic with the dream team and everything that was starting there. And after, since I would say the starting of 2000, the NBA understand to have the American player is good, but you need to pitch to have the international player from around the world. Okay, NBA, it's business oriented and selling merchandising, TV right, and sponsorship and everything. Okay, we know the business model, but the sport today grow globally, and you have people and players coming from all around the world. I've been to Japan, watch an NBA game. They was sold out because you have international players. You have one at this period of time where there was one Japan players and everything. In the case, they understand how to market the sport and how to develop the sport. And I think polo, they have good lesson in front of them. In the case, they need to see what happened in all those different sports. And I think they have to build this with each national federation around the world. Who are the best players? We need to bring these players, the top players in each country, to come to play to Palermo, and not only reserve to the Argentinian players. We need to have more players like that to come. And that's something that the international federation need to work with the national federation and with the clubs. And us, with our property, with what we try, if we can give an exposure or to make these players come to play a competition and to have the chance to play against top players or to show them in front of the polo world, there's players who can be good outside of the Argentina, it will be the best. And I know it's not easy. It's a long way to go, but you need to start from something. And I think that FIP need to work on this to have not thinking about only Argentinian. It's good. They will continue like in NBA. You will still have top American players on the top of the sport, but you need to bring the rest, and the rest of the world is not a simple one country. And that's something that they have to review this, to work with everyone and to build this.
The economics of the sport in so many different countries is vastly different from one another. I had a great conversation with Fred Mannix as part of my season 2 podcast, and he went down the path of understanding the differences between US and Argentina in terms of the economics of polo and the horse. And polo is kind of the great equalizer to some degree, but the horse is so part of the agriculture and culture within Argentina. It is far more accessible, far more inexpensive for people to pick up the game and get involved in it and develop their craft. Where here in the US, it's very, very expensive. I'd use the concept, a lot of people says, how much does it cost to get involved in polo? And I always tell them it's probably like hockey. Club hockey is incredibly expensive in the US. That's probably the best thing. When you start owning horses, then you're owning a boat. It goes up there. If I were to create some relevancy between other hobbies and activities, that's kind of how I explain it. But you look at some of the individuals who play the game, that are rising young stars, they come from polo families, wealthy families, and developing their craft. You don't see kind of just, the middle class and so on and so forth getting involved in the game and picking it up. And, it's not like they're playing polo in backyards and things like that. In Argentina, they technically are.
Yes, I understand that. But if you take golf, golf in the US is very popular. In UK is very popular. But The rest of the world is very expensive. In France, I remember when I started in sport business, I remember golf was very expensive. So you cannot go there. You need to pay a green fee. You need to take a lot of lessons to learn how to play. It was reserved to a certain elite and everything, blah, blah, blah. And today, everybody's playing golf here next to my house. I have a golf course, and where I live here, there is a 10 golf course around. It's normal, and everybody's going to play golf easy, and the price decrease because it's become something very easy to play in the case. But if you come back 30 years ago or 25 years ago, it was reserved. And I think that they transform. You have some best player came from different countries around the world. I think I would say we are the sister on the name, but not on the concept of the competition. But the Ryder Cup in golf show exactly that Europe against America, shows some other players not coming from only from the America, but also from the Europe or the rest of the world. I think it was good to see that there is potential outside. And I think that the same way as polo, you need to do it. You need to push this and you need to develop the players. And I would say that something, maybe it's a program for the FIB to develop this and to bring the player from around the world to compete at the high level against the Argentina. Today, why Argentina is all the time a world championship? Okay, good. But it's not helping the sport at the end of the day. Because you restrict the sport. I'm taking an example, marketing-wise, today. When you go to sponsors, you have a bank called HSBC. They said, yes, we are sponsoring the polo in Argentina because it is the best. Yes, but we have different properties in the world, and we have this, we have that. We are the Polo Rider Cup and everything. Yes, but in Argentina is the best. In the case we do only there. Okay, in the case it's not helping because if you want to develop the sport, if the sponsor involved in Argentina don't want to go further or outside of Argentina because it's only Argentina the best, but you kill the rest of the business outside of Argentina. It's not good.
Thank you very much for saying that, because I have run into that issue as well, where yes, the sport of polo is fragmented. There's no question about it. There is value in Argentina versus other parts of the country that do it well, but at the same time, those commercial interests, you hope that we want to meet your business and marketing objectives, help us meet our business and marketing objectives as a sport itself, and help us expand, because commercialization can do that. It really can. When you look at popular sports today, for example, action sports, when it comes to skateboarding and so on and so forth, where would those sports be if it wasn't for Mountain Dew and Vans, the shoe company? Where would they be if it wasn't for those brands and what they did for the game?
Surfing was Quicksilver.
Yeah.
They push the sport.
Those were the originals. Yes.
Yeah. You want to, you don't want, it's this, that Nike did his job also with basketball and Michael Jordan, that was helping to boost the sport in a certain way.
And that concept came with Tiger Woods too, with Nike.
Yeah. Tiger Woods too. Yeah, the same. Exactly.
It's amazing that a lot of the progression that you see in certain sports, you can really attribute that back to a brand that really helped launch it. They saw a demographic that appealed to their brand. Hey, we want this market. What can we do for your sport? And let it blossom and grow from there. And my gosh, there definitely needs it. There's a massive potential in this sport. And with women's polo now, youth polo is incredible to watch. Here in the US with television shows like Yellowstone, the whole cowboy and horse kind of thing is starting to be sex appeal and attractive and so on and so forth. And aside from the seersucker bow ties and champagne, you meet the polo players. They're humble Coors Light drinking barbecue guys at its core. There is great potential, because I always felt that, yes, it's nice to see the Bentleys and Lamborghinis and Ferraris, at events. But I will tell you one thing. I guarantee 90% of the people who are attending those events are all driving BMWs. So if BMW were to get involved, it would be the easiest sale on their part to either lease or buy a car, because the demo is ripe for it. It just makes me think that why are more affordable luxury brands not involved in this game? And now and then you do see one, like Celebrity Cruises had a stint before. Now you see, this is not affordable luxury, but NetJets is starting to dabble. They're starting to carry over from their equestrian into polo. But for me, it's like there's definitely not enough. Lexus, BMW, the Merrill Lynch's and Northern Trusts of the world, cryptocurrency definitely get involved. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's ripe with opportunity. The money that's there, in my opinion, versus what they might be spending on the NFL is nothing. Like your brand can go such a long way in our sport, and you're not even paying for nearly the rights that you would in something like the NFL, NBA, and what have you. So it's ripe with potential. This April, the sporting world will be celebrating a momentous milestone as the Lexus International Gay Polo Tournament, presented by Douglas Elliman, returns for its 12th year from April 6th through the 10th. The International Gay Polo Tournament was founded in 2010, and the event has grown in popularity, creativity, and impact, with nearly 3,000 players, attendees, and merrymakers from around the world attending the event annually. The event was created to generate awareness and to move the needle forward for LGBTQ athletes, and to ensure athletes not only have the same opportunities, but also have a safe place to learn, grow, and excel in their sport. Since its inception, the priority has remained to raise a significant amount of money in support of diversity and inclusion initiatives for other LGBTQ organizations. Since becoming a 501c3 organization, the GPL has donated over $30,000 to organizations such as Compass Youth Program and SAGE. This year's event will benefit One Pulse Foundation, an organization born after the tragic events that unfolded at Pulse nightclub, where 49 people lost their lives in 2016. One Pulse Foundation's mission is to create a sanctuary and build a national LGBTQ museum to honor the victims. This year's event will be marked with full slate of activities and will celebrate with fun, fashion, and of course, polo. The 5 days of festivities will come to a head in a majestic match only rivaled by the creative competitions from the tailgaters when the event returns to the International Polo Club Palm Beach in Wellington, Florida. To learn more about this year's event and to purchase tickets, please visit www.gaypolo.com. Thank you for your support, and we look forward to seeing you at this year's must-attend event.
I was talking with a watch brand, and everybody, example, in the watch world, go to Formula One, or motorsport. And when you watch I said, guys, in this sport, there is, Rolex is a title sponsor of the Formula One in terms of timing and watch partner. But you are associated with teams and everything. If you are not in the top team, nobody see you. But people go there because I said, you have one sport called polo, where you can take everything for maybe the same amount you are spending in Formula One, you can have all the sports globally.
Yeah, that's right.
And I said to the brand, I said, guys, you can have a huge exposure. You reach your customers, you reach your audience, you reach everything in one deal, bringing one sport together to you. And they said to me, oh, yes, we're not sure. Are you sure this? I said, yeah, I'm sure. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
But it's today you are just in the middle of a pot. Nobody see you, because your boss or your CEO is fan of this team or these riders and everything. Good. But at the end, what the benefit at the end of the day? And I'm not sure you are increasing your sales through this. Maybe you just have an ego or pleasure to be in Formula One. It's good. Then you miss an opportunity to own a sport. And some people don't understand that. And I think sometimes I don't understand where the strategy goes and why to be in a pot with everyone, with your main competitor is in front of you to the next car on TV with Rolex, and you are nowhere. And at the end, I said, why you are there? Just position yourself differently and you will see. Or your audience will come.
Yeah. It is a shame still. I used to work for IEG Consulting. I don't know if you're familiar with that agency. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
And I would lead the international business side of things. And even here in America, as educated as people are when it comes to sponsorship and what have you, I swear a high percentage of the involvement of these brands with their sport is still a personal relationship from like the CEO or the CMO. And it's just like, what? That brand is associated with it. I cannot see the fit. I can't.
Or you have some people tell you, example, someone from Porsche at the high level told me, Porsche and Polo, no, this is not the same audience. I said, okay, interesting. Okay, maybe, but the guy who are on the horse can buy a 10 car maybe of you if you think it's not the same audience. I don't know what audience you are looking for, but I said, are you sure? I said, yeah, yes. The owner of the teams are the one who has the money, and they can buy maybe 10 Porsche or maybe 20. I don't know, but that's the target you're looking for.
Yeah.
And the guy was just, sometimes, and I don't understand what you have to do. Yeah, no, we do something else. We do golf. Okay. And I suppose, like you said, someone inside of the company or the CEO like to play golf. In the case, they go to golf.
I'm going to say something. I swear my cousin's going to hate me for saying this. But part of me feels as though people's investment in golf is like throwing spaghetti at the wall, because the audience is so huge. The spectatorship is so huge. It's like, if I'm going to throw a dart, it's going to hit someone, and it's going to hit a lot of people. So golf is a good place for me. All right. The intimate connection that you're going to have I don't think is really there. I mean, you're just in a vast sea of shrimp. We'll see if it sticks or not. But my pitch to a lot of brands, I'm like, I've been in the industry enough to know of what sports you're going to have the highest level of engagement and intimacy when it comes to your customers. And polo is right up there. I mean, the length of time that people take to go to an event, it's a destination event. It is a time to be outdoors in the sun. It's socializing. It has some of the same attributes as other mainstream sports, if not more. And the smaller demographic is more unique because you have much more intimate connections. And polo is going to work harder, I think, for those brands to make sure those intimate connections happen with their customers that ultimately will translate to sales. Everything else is just far too big.
Exactly.
And that's what attracted me to polo to begin with. It's just like, there's a blank canvas here. Everything else is so saturated. The same idea has been replicated X, Y, and Z number of times for 5 different brands in the same sport. And they come and go. After 3 or 5 years, a sponsor will go, another brand or category will throw in, and they're essentially replicating some of the same things. I mean, that's why I'm still in the game. And I still see that there's a lot of opportunity. And having discussions like with you, who are like-minded, that come from the mainstream and feel the same way, is a huge value. We need more people like yourself in this game that can see the bigger picture and have more vision. Definitely.
Yeah. And I think that for me, my experience in polo, I'm feeling there's so many things to be done, and probably will be my last experience. But I want to go to the maximum I can there, because there is the opportunity is so big. The sport is so great. I invite different people at the first Polo Rider Cup from different area. People left and said, wow, I never imagined that the sport was like that. And I said, yes, you see it. In the case, and people enjoy it and they want to come back. They want to be invited again. And everything. In the case, you build something different.
Yeah.
And for me, I think there is so many things to be done in polo. There is so many work and development, and brings media, because also it's another aspect, the media part, because we've been talking about sponsors, but the media part. Today, this community of polo, also, they are just focused on what we call OTT channel dedicated to polo. In the case, you restrict your audience to the polo family only. And I think that for me, it's a big mistake, because you stay conservative just to be with yourself and like yourself. And I think that's not the way that the sport needs to be developed. In the case, when I said to the FIP, to everyone, I want to produce first all the game live. That's the first thing. Secondly, I want to pitch some TV broadcaster. In the case, we're going to produce a magazine, and we're going to go to propose the program to other broadcasters that to the traditional OTT channel. I did the deal with the OTT channel. It was good to do it. We have a Global Polo in TV for the US. We have Horse and Country in UK. We have Click My Horse TV in Germany, Horse TV in Italy. And I went to pitch some other TV, and like BT in UK, which is doing the Champions League. They're doing all the sports and polo never done before. TV in Spain, same thing, that, they never done any polo before. We did a deal. Sky in Italy. In the case, I try to bring the product in different being sport, tech also. In the case, to this traditional broadcaster who are showing tennis, NBA, golf, whatsoever, they pick up polo, and it was a success because everybody renewed and they want to have the content more. And all the broadcasters are interested to have the event also. In the case, you build the audience, you build, I would say, the power of the sport. More and more, you create an interest. And Today, I have been talking 2 weeks ago with betting, in the case why we don't do live betting with one of the platforms. Said, it's too early, he said to me, wait a little bit because Polo, but what you're doing is exactly how you need to develop the sport. And I think maybe in 1 or 2 years, betting will come to Polo. You try to create a product that make attractive for everyone. In the case that's the media part is something to be developed also. And that's what I said to the FIP, when they build their 4 years program with a calendar, I think when you go to a TV channel, said where you said, I have one competition, I have 20 games. And when you have 4 years program, I have 200 games. It's another ball game.
Yeah.
You're going to negotiate something different. And it's the way you have to work, when I was in FIBA, we came with 4 years program, you have one World Cup, 2 European Championship, Continental Championship. You come with something consistent with a lot of games. In the case when you negotiate a deal with a TV broadcaster or with the sponsors, it's consistent. You're not selling just one competition with one game, because today Polo, most of the time, they are just filming the final or the semi-final and final and full stop. You don't create the audience. You don't create the interest of the sport on TV. And for me, the strategy is also this. You need to create the demand, the request, the attractiveness of the sport. And if you don't do this, you will stay like it is today. In the case with the Polo Rider Cup, what we try to do it with my partners, that's to develop the sport and to enlarge the audience at the maximum we can.
Mm-hmm. So first off, is everything live, even on mainstream media?
No, on the mainstream media, no, because it's too early.
Okay.
We have some discussion 2 days, Monday on Wednesday. I have a meeting with a mainstream TV who wants to pick up the live games.
Okay.
In that case, I will let you know after this meeting, but there is an interest and we'll be in France, but that's the target we want to go. For me, if I would say to him, all the game maybe is too much, but if you take quarter, semi, and final, I will be happy because it's already you make an interest and create something different and from what you have the ability to offer to your viewers.
So are they then editing the live into like what, hour broadcast or 2-hour broadcast, or the match in its entirety? They're not cutting out like a lot of airtime or?
No, we're showing the full game, 80 minutes with a commercial break and a normal game, and at the end with the interview with the best players of each game. There was also a traditional in polo, that's something I changed. There was a podium ceremony after each game. I said, did you see that in football or in soccer or in basketball after each game? You say there's also this traditional way to do the business or to manage an event. They say, no, we full stop. The podium is at the end of the event. And, you try to rebuild the property and it's much better. It's much quality. And we want to show the sport in a different way.
Now, are you executing your matches as if they're 80-minute events, as if they were being broadcast live?
Yeah.
Got it. So you're keeping the 80 minutes within that timetable, regardless of whether it's being live or not.
We are live during the shuttle. We are showing interview, or it gives the opportunity to the digital platform or the OTT channel to put the advertising if they have some advertising to put. And we are doing interview and everything. And we do a program like it is an NBA game or a soccer game. Normal.
Yeah, but the nice thing is, I mean, that's attractive in itself that you're executing an event within a certain time limit. So ultimately, when main television wants to come in, hey, this sport can be executed within the time frame of being live that you want. At the end of the day, do you have to have a red hat on the side that says, hey, we got to be on the field sort of thing, or it's TV timeout?
Yeah, exactly this. We start at a precise time and everything, because between the game, there was not organized well. In the case, if it's at 3:00, it's at 3:00. We don't start at 3:30.
Yeah.
It's at 3:00. We are introduction, presentation of the teams, and go. We don't lose time, and it's something we are doing all the time, and we have done. At the start, the first day was little, you have to manage, but afterwards it was perfectly well done. And also you have to work with the referees, and they have understand this very well. Because we have been doing this and it was working well.
Have you gotten any pushback from any of the teams or players, like this is moving too fast, or?
No, because, I'm going to tell you something, Daniel, because at the end it was funny, because when you've been talking about TV, the first meeting, people said, okay, TV, no, because they don't have the habitude. And we did a meeting 2 days before the final with the other captain of the team. And in the case that the Richmonds, and all of them love the TV aspect. And they said, oh, okay, maybe we can go speed and everything. And while we did, so we stopped the game when we changed horse. And, the rules we are changing now come also from them. In the case, they realize what the benefit to be on TV, to be exposure. They feel them like they are LeBron James on the field, or Lewis Hamilton in his Formula One, or I don't know, Tiger Woods on green. It is them. It's different, actually in the case, can we do this in this way? Or can we do that? For the interview, maybe we come faster after the game. And they understand the benefit of this. And after at the end, what they said, we went to dinner with their friends. They said, you see me on TV and everything, blah, blah, blah. And it's working. Everybody told me the same at the end, and sent me some comments after the event. And it's interesting because people understand the benefit to be exposed.
That's great, though. The fact that you're challenging kind of the status quo of what polo has done in order to conform to being a better product to attract major television opportunities, even if that's subtly and having to change the rules of the game to make it more attractive, but really pushing hard and showing the benefit to the players and teams, which, no offense, in some areas, they can be stubborn. They can want to do things the way that they want to do them, and no one wants to interfere. But if you want the sport to progress and have that big television audience and so on and so forth, you kind of do have to conform because every other sport has had to do it. It's not rocket science at the end of the day. And like you said, some subtle differences can really change the game, really can easily.
Exactly. But, this year, my target in terms of media, in terms of TV, to have a deal in France, which normally I should have Wednesday, and also in Germany, where I have a channel, asked me to broadcast all the game. In the case, if we have second years, already 2 mainstream channels to broadcast the full tournament, for me, it's a win. It's a win, and it's a good example, and it's something we have achieved almost the goals. And it's funny because, I contact ESPN Polo in Latin America, which today is Star Plus. Said, are you interested about the event to broadcast the event and live or live delay? What because with the time difference and everything. Said, we're not showing any event outside of Argentina. Again, it's an error because there, maybe ego or something like that, they restrict to just their world. In the case, for me, it's a big mistake because here you need to show, because you have Argentina playing in a tournament, but also you need to show the other competition. Polo is not just restricted to one country. It's like to go to a tournament in Australia without any vaccine, you feel you are the best, but you need to also understand there is a world, and you are not the best.
Yeah, it doesn't revolve all around you, that's for sure.
Exactly. It's not around you. You need to accept there is a world around you, and you have to make some compromise and to understand what's going on in each country. In the case, for me, that I don't understand. And that's also the work that the FIP have to do it and have to push this more.
Yeah. My gosh, man, we could talk about this forever. I feel like we got to have another conversation after your event in June and see the progress that you guys have made and what have you. But I'm excited to see everything that you're doing out there. You have a perfect mindset, I think, that this sport needs. And this is the second year, right, for Polo Rider Cup?
Yes, 2022 would be the second year. First year, because of the pandemic, we have been restricted to open to the public to 4 days, only the last 4 days. This year, we hope with all the vaccination, and by June, I think we'll be set and we'll open all days. And we have changed also another aspect. And I'm playing the Argentina World. We have decided to ending the event on Saturday, like is a tradition in polo in Argentina. And that's something we have done, and create what we call a closing party with inviting all the team, media, sponsors, and VIP. And that's the idea also, to bring the family together. But we want to be, I would say, the event can change a little the sport and to bring a new spirit for the sport. and to be the showcase, I would say, to the sport. And I hope in the future the sport will be using what we have done and to make the sport more great, more popular, I would say, and have players from around the world play at a high level possible, and with big media coverage, with big partners, and with the best audience we can. It's not something easy to do it. Maybe it's a big dreams, but we try to help the sport in this direction.
I actually forgot to ask you one very important question. Where do you guys source all of your horses for this match? How does that work?
The horses are, some of the team brings the horses.
They're flying them in, huh?
Flying them in, yes. And some other one, my partner, Benoit Perrier, who have a lot of contacts in polo because he's working on day-to-day in this world, can sources polo because there is some horses based in Germany, in Spain, in France too. In the case he can source us some polo, but they are Argentinian horses. In the case they are there, they're already there. In the case for the team who don't have their own polo horses. But example, your friend Larry Ashbrook, that's the idea. We want to bring his own horses to Chantilly. I don't know if he'll do it this year, but it was one of his main ideas.
Mm-hmm.
But after it's another budget for him because this year in 2021 he was sources horses in Europe, but I think that he wants to bring his own horses in 2022. In the case, we'll see.
It can give a competitive advantage if you're sourcing your own horses, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's his decision, but because he wants to win, it was my bet on last year because he was impressive on the first game. They were impressive. And after they slow down. But anyway, it's part of the game. So.
Yeah, I know Larry had a pretty nasty injury too.
Yeah, on his back. Yes.
It affected him here during our season as well, but hopefully he's all healed up and ready to get back on it.
No, we were at the same hotel. In the case, we have every night some discussion, and we came along very easy. In the case, it was good.
Good deal. And what are the dates for this year?
This year, it's 8 to 18 June 2022.
Wonderful. I'd love to try to make it, but that's so close to the start of my season. I start at the end of June. Maybe I can get up there for the holiday and just say hello.
Yeah.
Before that.
It will be the same date every year, more or less.
There you go. That's easy. Well, Oliver, I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been a great discussion. Excited to see the progress of the Polo Rider Cup and everything else that you're doing. People like you, we need in our sport. There's no question about it. So excited to see what you do in the future and what your ideas are. And we should talk more off base. Most definitely. I like the idea of bringing gambling into the sport. We got to figure that out. I know the former GoPro guy started a gambling or helping to incorporate sports gambling into smaller sports like polo or more obscure.
It would be good because I think there is a place for this and it will help also to develop the sport. But thanks for the discussion. It was good. And I hope we have more opportunity in the future. But my past sport where I used to work, we said, I love this game. And I will say I will use these words for polo.
Wonderful. Wonderful, man. Well, good luck to you in June and we'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Daniel.
That was a great episode. What is the one thing you learned from today's conversation? If this episode had an impact on you in some way, then I encourage you to visit and subscribe to our website at outsidetheboards.com for more episodes and interviews with incredible guests. Thanks for stopping by, my friends, and hope to see you on the polo field.